Did the 1970s secretly make bolder science fiction than Hollywood produces today? Everyone remembers Star Wars, Alien, and Close Encounters, but those giants pushed dozens of stranger films into the shadows. These forgotten movies predicted artificial intelligence, climate collapse, cloning, virtual worlds, surveillance, and governments controlling private life. Before we uncover these forgotten worlds, please like this video, share it with another classic science fiction fan, and subscribe to the channel. Number 35, Star Crash, 1978. A pair of space smugglers accidentally becomes responsible for saving the entire galaxy. Stella Star and her navigator Acton are captured after rescuing a survivor from a secret Imperial mission. Instead of receiving a normal sentence, they are ordered to locate a missing prince and destroy a hidden superweapon. Their journey sends them from one impossible planet to another. They face robotic guards, frozen wastelands, prehistoric tribes, and the forces of Count Zarth Arn. Christopher Plummer plays the Emperor, while a young David Hasselhoff appears as his missing son, Prince Simon. One sequence explains the film's cult reputation better than any plot summary. Stella confronts a towering female robot that rises above a city and attacks with an enormous sword. The stop-motion figure looks like an ancient statue brought to mechanical life, combining mythology and space adventure in one unforgettable image. Director Luigi Cozzi never attempts realism. Stars glow in bright colors, spaceships resemble expensive toys, and John Barry's music gives even the wildest scenes unexpected importance. The plot races through enough ideas for several movies. Acton discovers useful powers whenever the heroes need them, Imperial soldiers wear strange helmets, and an enormous weapon is attacked using an equally unlikely plan. It may not be serious science fiction, but it possesses complete creative confidence. Number 34, Laser Blast, 1978. Loneliness gives one frustrated teenager the most dangerous weapon in town. Billy Duncan feels ignored by his mother, mocked by local deputies, and disconnected from almost everyone around him. His life changes when he discovers an abandoned alien laser cannon and a strange power device lying in the desert. The weapon initially makes Billy feel strong. Each time he uses it, however, the device slowly changes his appearance and personality. His skin becomes unhealthy, his behavior grows unpredictable, and ordinary annoyances begin turning into targets. The scene most viewers remember involves Billy confronting the deputies who previously embarrassed him. Standing alone on the road with the alien cannon, he finally possesses the power he once wished for. Yet the moment does not feel heroic. It shows that the weapon has nearly erased the insecure young man who first found it. Stop-motion aliens appear at the beginning and end, suggesting Billy has accidentally entered a conflict he cannot understand. The movie later became famous through comedy programs, but behind its uneven effects lies a surprisingly bleak story about power finding someone who is already angry at the world. Enjoying these forgotten discoveries? Press the like button and tell us in the comments which film you remember. And subscribe now, because the strangest movies in this countdown have not even appeared yet. Number 33, Future World, 1976. Two reporters receive an invitation to visit the rebuilt Delos amusement resort. The company wants the public to forget the earlier disaster at Westworld, where its robots stopped following instructions, and the fantasy park became dangerously uncontrollable. Journalist Chuck Browning suspects the reopening hides something. He and television reporter Tracy Ballard enter Future World, a high-tech environment where visitors can ski on artificial mountains, experience simulated space travel, and interact with machines designed to look almost perfectly human. The resort appears safer than before. Every attraction is carefully monitored, company representatives provide reassuring explanations, and the robots behave with polite efficiency. That polished presentation makes Browning even more suspicious. Their investigation reveals that Delos is creating exact robotic copies of powerful visitors. The replacements will return home under the company's control, giving Delos influence over governments, businesses, banks, and media organizations without the public knowing anything has changed. The most historically important scene shows Browning and Ballard watching three-dimensional computer images of their own heads. The graphics appear extremely simple today, but the sequence belongs to the early history of computer-generated imagery in commercial cinema. Peter Fonda and Blythe Danner lead the mystery, with their characters moving between professional rivalry and growing trust. Yul Brynner briefly returns as the gunslinger during a dream sequence. His appearance was heavily promoted, even though his role is small and mostly symbolic. The film expands the danger of Westworld. In the earlier story, machines became threatening because they malfunctioned. Here, the robots work perfectly. The real danger comes from human executives discovering how useful artificial people could become. A machine that looks exactly like a political leader does not need to attack anyone publicly. It only needs to replace that person and continue appearing on television. Number 32, The Neptune Factor, 1973. Deep beneath the ocean, an earthquake sends an experimental research station sliding into an unexplored trench. 3 scientists remain trapped inside, leaving a rescue crew with only a limited amount of time to reach them. Commander Adrian Blake joins Dr. Leah Jansen and experienced diver Mackenzie aboard a specially designed submarine called the Neptune. As the vessel descends, the crew discovers that the trench contains sea life far larger than anything normally found near the surface. The film's signature sequence places the tiny submarine beside enormous fish that appear to study it as possible food. The illusion was created by photographing real marine animals so they would look gigantic. Modern viewers may notice the technique, but the contrast between the small vessel and the endless dark water still creates tension. Rather than giving the crew advanced weapons, the story forces them to remain careful. One damaged window, mechanical failure, or wrong turn could end the rescue immediately. The film combines the disaster trend of the 70s with underwater science fiction. Ernest Borgnine brings energy to the mission, while Walter Pidgeon adds authority. It moves slowly by modern standards, yet its lonely descent into an unexplored world remains strangely calming and unsettling at the same time. Number 31, The Visitor, 1979. A basketball game becomes the opening battlefield in one of the decade's strangest cosmic struggles. A young girl named Katie Collins possesses powerful mental abilities, but unseen forces disagree about how those abilities should be used. Her wealthy stepfather hopes Katie's mother will have another child, because his secret associates believe the children can continue a mysterious bloodline. Meanwhile, an elderly traveler named Jerzy Kolsowitz arrives to protect Katie from the darker influence surrounding her. The famous basketball sequence immediately announces that normal storytelling rules will not apply. As Katie watches from the audience, a player suddenly experiences an impossible mid-game accident. The event appears connected to her stare, yet the film refuses to provide a simple explanation. John Huston plays the visitor with complete seriousness, even when surrounded by glowing spaces, strange birds, mysterious children, and unexplained cosmic images. The cast also includes Glenn Ford, Shelley Winters, Lance Henriksen, Franco Nero, and Sam Peckinpah. Religious mystery, alien science fiction, family drama, and supernatural suspense collide in almost every scene. Understanding all of it may be impossible, but forgetting its images is equally difficult. It feels like several popular 70s movies were combined without anyone being told to remove the strangest ideas. Number 30, Message from Space, 1978. 8 glowing seeds travel across the galaxy, searching for heroes who can rescue the peaceful planet Gelucia. Its people have been conquered by the Gavanas, a heavily armed empire led by the cold and theatrical Roxia XII. Unfortunately, the chosen heroes are not noble warriors waiting for a mission. Some are reckless space racers, others are soldiers, and several would rather avoid responsibility. General Garuda eventually becomes the center of the resistance, while Sonny Chiba appears as the rebellious Prince Hans. The movie's most memorable action sequence sends small ships racing through narrow structures, while enemy fire surrounds them. The influence of Star Wars is clear, but director Kinji Fukasaku fills the adventure with Japanese design, unusual costumes, explosive miniature work, and touches of samurai storytelling. Nothing remains quiet for long. Ships spin, planets shake, characters argue, and the magical seeds keep guiding unlikely strangers toward their shared mission. The movie was dismissed by some critics as an imitation, yet that description ignores its personality. It is louder, stranger, and less controlled than the films that inspired it. The result resembles a colorful space legend told by someone who refuses to remove a single idea, no matter how wild it becomes. Number 29, The Daytime Ended, 1979. A peaceful desert home suddenly becomes the center of a cosmic event that nobody can explain. Grant and Anna Williams have moved into an advanced solar-powered house with their family, expecting a quiet new beginning. Instead, strange lights fill the sky, mysterious objects appear inside the home, and unfamiliar creatures begin battling outside, as though the family's property has landed between 2 alien armies. Director John Bud Cardos treats the story less like a traditional invasion film and more like a confusing nightmare. The characters rarely understand what is happening, and the movie gives the audience only small pieces of information. Its most memorable scene arrives when tiny glowing beings appear near the family's young daughter. At first, they seem friendly and almost magical. That feeling quickly changes when larger creatures and beams of energy surround the house. The effects look handmade, but that gives the movie unusual charm. Rather than explaining every strange event, the story keeps pushing the family through space, time, and unfamiliar landscapes. By the ending, their modern desert home has become a doorway into something much larger than Earth. Number 28. Warlords of Atlantis, 1978. An experimental diving bell carries Professor Aitken and engineer Greg Collinson toward the bottom of the ocean. Their expedition appears successful when they discover a mysterious golden statue. Greed immediately creates trouble as members of the ship's crew decide to steal the treasure. Before anyone can escape, a huge sea creature attacks the vessel and drags the explorers beneath the surface. They awaken inside Atlantis, an advanced city controlled by beings who claim to have arrived from another world. Its most famous sequence begins when a tentacled creature surrounds the diving bell. The explorers are trapped behind glass while the animal pulls them toward an unknown destination. The practical monster may appear simple today, but the scene captures a basic fear perfectly, being sealed inside a small container while something enormous waits outside. Doug McClure again plays the dependable adventure hero. Peter Gilmore, Sid Charisse, Daniel Massey, and Michael Gothard populate the underwater kingdom. The Atlantean rulers promise knowledge, safety, and comfort, but their generosity hides plans for the surface world. Victorian machinery, alien intelligence, sea monsters, and lost city fantasy are mixed together like several paperback covers joined into one story. The result feels old-fashioned, colorful, and wonderfully sincere. Number 27. The People That Time Forgot, 1977. A rescue mission enters the frozen region of Caprona to find explorer Bowen Tyler, who vanished years earlier. Major Ben McBride leads the expedition with photographer Lady Charlotte Cunningham and scientist Norfolk. Their aircraft crosses the mountains, but a prehistoric creature forces them into an emergency landing. Beyond the cliffs lies a warm, hidden world where dinosaurs, primitive tribes, and more advanced warriors exist together. The rescuers soon discover that survival requires more than locating Tyler. Every path seems to lead toward another creature or hostile group. One unforgettable moment places the heroes near a wall covered with skulls. As they study it, a pair of living eyes suddenly appears inside one of the empty spaces. The owner has hidden his face behind the wall, creating a sharp surprise without expensive effects. Patrick Wayne leads the cast, while Doug McClure returns as the missing Tyler. Sarah Douglas brings intelligence and courage to Lady Charlotte, who refuses to remain a helpless observer. The story becomes increasingly fantastic as the group encounters volcanic landscapes and a society that has developed beyond the surrounding tribes. The film cares less about explaining how Caprona works than about revealing what dangerous wonder might be waiting beyond the next hill. Number 26. At the Earth's Core, 1976. A Victorian drilling machine begins a short test journey and refuses to stop. American investor David Innes and eccentric scientist Dr. Abner Perry expect to travel through a Welsh mountain. Instead, the machine carries them hundreds of miles downward into Pellucidar, a vast world beneath Earth's surface. This underground land contains human communities, prehistoric creatures, and intelligent flying beings called the Mahars. Those rulers control other species through mental power, forcing the newcomers into a struggle neither expected. The scene viewers rarely forget involves the enormous iron mole breaking through the ground as Peter Cushing's Dr. Perry celebrates the invention, only to realize they have arrived nowhere near their planned destination. His cheerful confusion gives the movie much of its charm. Doug McClure plays Innes as a direct adventure hero, while Caroline Munro appears as the determined Princess Dia. Their rebellion against the Mahars creates battles involving cages, strange animals, and volcanic caverns. The creature suits are clearly practical and sometimes look more enthusiastic than realistic. Yet the physical sets, smoky tunnels, and colorful monsters give Pellucidar a personality that smoother modern effects might remove. It is a bright matinee adventure created to make grown viewers feel like children again. Number 25. No Blade of Grass, 1970. A virus begins destroying every species of grass, including wheat, rice, and other crops that support human civilization. Governments initially promise that science will provide an answer, but food shortages quickly spread across the world. Architect John Custance learns that London may soon be sealed off. He gathers his family and several companions, hoping to reach his brother's protected farm in northern England. Their journey begins in familiar streets and gradually enters a country where law, money, and social position have lost their meaning. Roadblocks, frightened communities, armed groups, and limited supplies force John to make increasingly difficult decisions. Director Cornell Wilde uses sudden flashes of later events to warn viewers that the group's moral decline has already begun. The structure removes the comfort of believing that civilized behavior will survive unchanged. One of the strongest sequences shows London continuing its ordinary routine while officials secretly prepare extreme measures. Traffic moves, people shop, and families remain inside their homes, unaware that the government believes the city can no longer be supported. That contrast makes the collapse feel more believable. Disaster does not begin when everyone understands what is happening. It begins while most people are still trusting official reassurance. Nigel Davenport gives John a cold practicality that grows as the journey continues. Jean Wallace plays his wife Anne, who watches the man she knew become someone shaped entirely by survival. The group must decide whom to trust, which roads to follow, and how much compassion they can afford. Each choice becomes more serious, because food production is disappearing, not simply food stored in shops. The film understands that agriculture is the invisible foundation beneath modern life. If grass-based crops disappear, cities do not merely become inconvenient. Transportation, trade, law, and government begin collapsing with them. Reaching the farm will not restore the old world. The travelers cannot move through the crisis without changing, and the farm itself becomes a source of conflict rather than guaranteed safety. Number 24. Chosen Survivors, 1974. A group of strangers awakens inside a deep underground shelter and receives a deeply unsettling explanation. A computer has selected them to preserve humanity after a nuclear emergency. Their families were not chosen, returning to the surface is impossible, and the facility may remain sealed for years. The survivors include scientists, politicians, military personnel, medical experts, and others considered valuable to rebuilding civilization. Almost immediately, disagreements begin. Some question whether the emergency is genuine. Others wonder why a computer was allowed to determine which lives were important enough to save. The shelter is presented as a technological achievement. It contains stored food, living areas, scientific equipment, and systems designed to protect the group from danger outside. Yet its greatest weakness comes from somewhere nobody expected. A colony of vampire bats discovers the underground complex. The animals enter through narrow openings and begin moving through ventilation systems and darkened rooms. The facility designed to protect humanity becomes a sealed cage with the survivors trapped inside it. The most memorable sequence places several characters in a dark section of the bunker as the bats gather above them. Power begins failing, panic spreads, and every small sound suggests the colony is moving closer. Unlike an ordinary creature attack, escape is not a simple option. Opening the shelter could expose everyone to whatever has happened on the surface. Jackie Cooper, Richard Jekyll, Bradford Dillman, Alex Cord, Diana Muldaur, and Pedro Armendariz Jr. give the production an unusually strong cast. Their characters represent different forms of authority, but professional titles become less valuable as fear takes over. Number 23. The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler, 1971. A television reporter investigates an accident involving a powerful United States senator. The politician is publicly reported to be recovering, but reporter Harry Walsh notices that the official story contains several contradictions. His search leads him to a remote medical facility hidden far from public attention. Inside, Walsh discovers several identical young men. Each carries biological material connected to the injured senator. The facility can replace damaged organs and potentially extend the lives of influential clients. The young men providing those organs have been created specifically for that purpose. The most disturbing revelation occurs when Walsh enters the hidden area and sees the duplicates standing together. Their calm behavior makes the discovery worse. They are not machines or stored medical equipment. They are living people who have never been allowed to choose how their bodies will be used. Leslie Nielsen plays Walsh long before comedy changed how most audiences viewed him. Here, he is serious, suspicious, and determined to follow a story even when powerful people want it buried. Bradford Dillman appears as the scientist overseeing the operation, while Angie Dickinson plays the senator's daughter. The film connects scientific progress with political privilege. The cloning process is not being used to cure ordinary patients or help society. It is being used to ensure that wealthy and powerful individuals can receive perfect replacement organs whenever necessary. That idea gives the story a cold, modern quality. The facility is clean, professional, and presented as a place of healing. Nobody working there behaves like a theatrical villain. They simply accept that the lives of the duplicates are less valuable than the people they were created to support. The production was made using videotape before being transferred to film, giving it a clinical television appearance. Rather than weakening the story, that visual flatness often makes the secret facility feel more realistic. Number 22. The Ground Star Conspiracy, 1972. An explosion destroys a secret government research facility, leaving one badly injured survivor. The man has no memory of his identity, Yet investigator Tuckson is convinced he caused the incident and stole valuable information. The survivor calls himself John Wells, although even that name may be false. As Tuckson questions him, the investigation becomes less about proving guilt and more about discovering whether Wells's entire personality has been altered. George Peppard plays Tuckson as a cold and relentless security officer. He believes national safety is more important than personal comfort, so kindness rarely enters his methods. Michael Sarrazin gives Wells a vulnerable quality, creating sympathy even when evidence seems to point toward him. The research center was involved in advanced behavioral science and identity manipulation. That information makes every recovered memory suspicious. Wells may be remembering his past, inventing it, or responding to instructions placed inside his mind before the explosion. One of the strongest sequences involves a carefully arranged escape. Wells appears to find an opportunity to flee, and for a brief moment, the movie seems to become a normal chase story. Yet every movement is being observed. The escape may simply be another stage of the investigation, created to see where he goes and whom he contacts. The film blends science fiction with the paranoid government thrillers that became popular during the decade. Computers, surveillance systems, psychological conditioning, and hidden agencies replace spaceships and aliens. Concrete buildings and empty Canadian landscapes create an impersonal world where everyone appears isolated. Information is treated as more valuable than identity, and the investigators speak about Wells as though he were a damaged container rather than a frightened human being. Number 21, The Happiness Cage, 1972. A rebellious soldier becomes the unwilling subject of a military experiment designed to remove aggressive behavior. Private James Reese has repeatedly challenged authority, making him the ideal candidate for a procedure that could transform disobedient soldiers into calm and manageable men. 2 doctors implant electrodes into his brain. Their device can activate pleasure whenever Reese follows desired behavior, creating a reward system his mind may not be able to resist. The procedure appears successful, but one doctor begins questioning whether they have treated a patient or erased a human personality. Christopher Walken, during an early stage of his career, plays Reese with unpredictable nervous energy. His behavior moves between defiance, confusion, fear, and an unnatural form of peace. The film's most powerful moment occurs when the researchers activate the system and Reese's anger suddenly disappears. His relaxed expression should represent success, yet it feels completely wrong. The audience understands that obedience has been created through control rather than trust or healing. Also known as the Mind Snatchers, the story is mostly confined to medical rooms and military spaces. Those limited locations strengthen the sense that Reese has nowhere to escape. Even if he leaves the building, the device has placed the prison inside his head. The doctors defend their work by pointing toward practical benefits. Soldiers without fear or anger would follow orders more efficiently. Patients experiencing emotional distress could be made calm. Dangerous impulses might disappear, yet every benefit depends on another person deciding which thoughts and feelings are acceptable. Reese's anger may create problems, but it also belongs to him. Removing it without consent turns treatment into ownership. The film never needs futuristic cities or expensive effects. Its science fiction comes from a simple medical possibility and the moral danger surrounding it. Number 20, Embryo, 1976. A scientist performs an unauthorized experiment after finding a pregnant dog injured near his home. Dr. Paul Holliston removes the unborn animal and uses an experimental growth formula to save it. The process works far beyond expectations, accelerating development at an astonishing rate. After proving that the formula can create rapid growth, Holliston repeats the procedure with a human embryo. Within weeks, the subject develops into an adult woman who calls herself Victoria. Rock Hudson plays Holliston as a lonely and respected researcher who becomes fascinated by his own achievement. He is not initially presented as cruel. His greatest weakness is curiosity without responsibility. Once the experiment begins succeeding, he becomes too excited to consider its long-term consequences. Barbara Carrera's Victoria learns language, science, music, social behavior, and complex ideas with unnatural speed. Yet accelerated development comes with a serious weakness. Her body begins aging, and she requires more of the formula to remain alive. A memorable party sequence places Victoria among Holliston's friends and professional associates. She defeats an arrogant chess player while calmly exposing his weaknesses. Everyone sees a brilliant and confident woman. Only Holliston understands that she has existed for a very short time and has learned adulthood without experiencing childhood. The scene reveals the tragedy behind the experiment. Victoria can absorb information quickly, but knowledge is not the same as emotional development. She has intelligence, ambition, fear, and the desire to survive, but she has not had years to learn patience, empathy, or acceptance. As her condition worsens, survival becomes her only priority. she begins making increasingly desperate choices because Holliston never prepared her for mortality. He created an adult mind and body, then expected her to accept a lifespan that might last only weeks. The film follows the basic shape of a Frankenstein story. A scientist creates life, celebrates his success, and only later recognizes the responsibilities attached to that creation. Number 19. The Shape of Things to Come, 1979. Humanity has escaped a ruined Earth only to discover that survival on the moon comes with a dangerous price. The remaining population lives beneath lunar domes and depends on an anti-radiation medicine produced on the distant planet Delta III. That supply is suddenly taken by Omus, a mechanical genius played with wild energy by Jack Palance. Rather than quietly controlling Delta III, Omus plans to conquer the moon by sending robot-controlled ships toward its fragile settlements. A small team secretly launches a mission to stop him. Dr. Cabal, his son Jason, scientist Kim Smedley, and a loyal robot named Sparks travel aboard a battle cruiser filled with wonderfully dated buttons and flashing control panels. The most unforgettable sight is Jack Palance commanding machines while wearing glowing electronic gloves. Every movement is huge, as though he realizes he has entered a live-action Saturday morning cartoon and intends to control every second of it. Despite using H.G. Wells' name, the plot has little connection to his original story. What remains is colorful Canadian space adventure filled with robots, miniatures, laser effects, and ideas larger than its budget. It is messy, cheerful, and nearly impossible to confuse with any other film. Number 18. The Ultimate Warrior, 1975. New York City has become an agricultural wasteland where small communities struggle over food, water, and seeds. In the year 2012, a former city official known as the Baron controls a protected neighborhood with gardens, clean water, and a working social structure. That stability is threatened by Carrot, the leader of a larger group determined to seize the Baron's resources. Carrot is not interested in rebuilding society. He wants control over anything that can feed his followers. Desperate for protection, the Baron hires a skilled fighter named Carson. Yul Brynner plays Carson with quiet confidence. He rarely wastes movement or words, making him seem far more dangerous than the louder men surrounding him. Max von Sydow gives the Baron intelligence and dignity. He understands that his small community cannot survive forever behind walls. William Smith turns Carrot into a powerful physical threat, someone who appears capable of breaking the settlement through force alone. The standout sequence sends Carson through abandoned subway tunnels, while enemies follow him through the darkness. The ruined city above is dangerous, but the underground route feels even more unpredictable. Every broken platform, stairway, and tunnel could hide an attack. As the community's defenses collapse, Carson receives a final mission. He must lead the Baron's pregnant daughter and a small supply of valuable seeds toward an island where a new settlement may be possible. That detail gives the movie a stronger idea than many louder apocalypse films. The future does not depend on treasure, fuel, or military technology. It depends on seeds and the ability to grow food. Number 17. The Cars That Ate Paris, 1974. A nervous traveler named Arthur survives a road accident that takes his brother's life. The nearby Australian town of Paris welcomes him with suspicious kindness. Its mayor offers him work, shelter, and a place within the community. Arthur slowly discovers that accidents are the foundation of the local economy. Residents deliberately create dangerous conditions on nearby roads, collect valuables from wrecked vehicles, and use some survivors in questionable medical experiments. The town presents itself as friendly and respectable. Adults attend meetings, discuss budgets, organize community events, and speak politely about civic responsibility. Beneath that ordinary appearance exists a system built entirely on the misfortune of outsiders. The film's most famous image is a modified Volkswagen covered with long metal spikes. Driven by one of the town's reckless young men, it looks less like transportation and more like a wild animal constructed from scrap metal. Director Peter Weir balances dark comedy with growing social unease. The adults of Paris maintain traditions while secretly benefiting from staged road accidents. Meanwhile, the younger drivers express anger and boredom by transforming their cars into increasingly extreme machines. Arthur wants to leave, but fear keeps him trapped. After surviving the crash, he becomes terrified of driving. The mayor uses that fear to make Arthur dependent on the town, slowly placing him into a role he never chose. When conflict finally erupts between the older residents and the younger drivers, cars crash through fences, buildings, and the carefully maintained social order. The machines become extensions of the young people controlling them. Although the film is often classified as dark comedy or horror, its medical experiments, altered survivors, and mechanical culture give it strong science fiction elements. Number 16. Damnation Alley, 1977. A nuclear exchange pushes Earth away from its natural balance, filling the sky with violent weather and transforming the American landscape. Several military survivors remain inside a desert base until another disaster forces them to begin a cross-country journey. Their destination is Albany, New York, where a radio transmission suggests that another community has survived. To reach it, the group enters two enormous armored vehicles called Landmasters. The Landmaster is the true star of the film. Its 12-wheel design, rotating wheel assemblies, heavy armor, and flexible body allow it to cross flooded roads and rough ground. Unlike many futuristic vehicles, it was physically constructed and could actually move across difficult terrain. George Peppard plays Major Denton, the disciplined leader determined to reach the distant signal. John-Michael Vincent's Tanner is more rebellious, but he is also one of the group's most capable drivers. Paul Winfield, Dominique Sanda, and a young Jackie Earle Haley join the journey. The most famous action sequence traps the travelers inside a ruined city filled with unusually aggressive insects. What begins as a simple search for supplies becomes a desperate escape as the creatures pour across walls, windows, and vehicles. Other dangers include violent storms, damaged towns, strange skies, and groups of survivors who have created their own rules. Every stop reveals another way civilization has changed. The film was loosely adapted from Roger Zelazny's novel, though many elements were altered. It also had the misfortune of appearing during the same year as Star Wars. Audiences suddenly wanted fast space adventure, while Damnation Alley offered a slower road journey through a dirty and damaged Earth. Number 15. The Medusa Touch, 1978. A French detective arrives at the apartment of writer John Morlar and finds him badly injured. Morlar is taken to a hospital, where machines keep him alive despite almost no visible response. Inspector Brunel searches the apartment and discovers Morlar's connection to psychiatrist Dr. Zonfeld. Through her records, he learns that Morlar believed he possessed the ability to cause disasters simply by concentrating on them. Richard Burton spends much of the film appearing through flashbacks, delivering Morlar's story with powerful anger. As a child, Morlar noticed that people he disliked experienced unlikely accidents. As an adult, he became convinced that his resentment could influence increasingly large events. At first, the psychiatrist treats the claims as guilt, mixed with coincidence. Morlar may simply be connecting himself to events he could not control, yet the number and timing of the disasters make that explanation increasingly difficult to accept. Lino Ventura gives the investigation a calm center. His Inspector Brunel is not easily frightened, and he approaches every strange claim through evidence. Lee Remick plays Dr. Zonfeld as a rational professional forced to consider an explanation that challenges everything she believes. The film's signature sequence involves a cathedral filled with important visitors. Morlar's hospital monitors begin reacting as the enormous structure develops cracks. Brunel realizes that the unconscious patient may be controlling the event from miles away. The tension does not come only from whether the building will collapse. It comes from the possibility that Morlar's mind cannot be stopped by ordinary physical methods. Even when his body appears powerless, his anger may remain active. The story treats supernatural ability like a scientific mystery. Timelines are examined, witnesses are questioned, psychological explanations are tested, and events are compared. Number 14. The Asphyx, 1972. A Victorian scientist studying the final moments of life notices a strange shape in photographs taken near people facing fatal accidents. Sir Hugo Cunningham concludes that the camera has captured an entity he calls the Asphyx. According to his theory, every person has a private spirit that appears at the moment life ends. If that spirit can be trapped, the person may become immortal. Sir Hugo and his adopted son Giles construct a system of bright light, water, chemicals, lenses, and moving photographic equipment. By placing themselves in controlled danger, they hope to attract and imprison their own asphyxies. The film's unforgettable sequence follows Sir Hugo as he sits in an electric chair connected to the experimental machinery. Giles must capture the screaming spirit at precisely the correct moment. The laboratory fills with harsh light while the distorted creature struggles against the device. Robert Stevens plays Sir Hugo with tragic confidence. He begins as a thoughtful researcher affected by personal loss. His desire to understand the final moment of life initially appears sincere, but the promise of immortality slowly damages his judgment. Robert Powell's Giles recognizes the danger but remains loyal to the man who raised him. Their relationship gives the experiment emotional weight. Giles is not merely helping a scientist, he is obeying someone he sees as a father. The machinery appears scientific, but the force they are studying is supernatural. That combination gives the movie its unusual identity. The characters do not face a ghost through prayer or ancient ritual. They use photography and electricity, treating the impossible as a repeatable laboratory event. Once immortality appears achievable, Sir Hugo stops asking whether it should be achieved. He begins making decisions for the people around him, assuming that endless life must automatically be a gift. Number 13. Idaho Transfer, 1973. A secret research project discovers a method of transporting people into the future. The equipment works only on young subjects, so a small group of students begins making experimental trips without fully understanding what they will discover. They arrive in a future where human civilization appears to have collapsed. Cities have disappeared, roads are empty, and nature has reclaimed much of the landscape. The young travelers initially believe they may be responsible for rebuilding society. They imagine themselves as pioneers who will carry knowledge from the past into a new world. That confidence begins fading when they realize the project's leaders have hidden important information from them. Returning to the past may not remain possible. Supplies are limited, communication becomes unreliable, and the future does not contain the welcoming environment they expected. Director Peter Fonda uses the Idaho landscape instead of expensive futuristic sets. Mountains, fields, empty roads, and abandoned structures become evidence of a world after humanity. The quietness itself functions like a special effect. One of the film's strongest moments occurs when the travelers discover signs that their role in the future is not what they imagined. They may not be founders of a new civilization. They may be pieces inside a larger cycle they do not understand. The mostly unknown cast gives the movie an unusual quality. The students do not look like polished Hollywood heroes. Their conversations are hesitant, their decisions are often poor, and their fear feels increasingly real. The production has a rough and experimental style. Important events happen without dramatic music, long silences remain untouched, and the story does not explain every mystery. That approach can make the film challenging, but it also creates authenticity. These young people were promised adventure, importance, and the chance to save the future. Instead, they enter an empty world that has no obligation to value them. Number 12, ZPG, 1972. Pollution has made the air nearly unbreathable, natural food has become rare, and governments blame overpopulation for the collapsing environment. Their solution is a worldwide ban on childbirth lasting 30 years. Large machines announce the policy while images of babies are publicly destroyed to demonstrate the seriousness of the law. Couples are given mechanical children instead, allowing them to imitate family life without increasing the population. Russ and Carol McNeil outwardly follow the rules, but Carol secretly wants a real child. She hides her pregnancy and eventually raises the baby inside a concealed section of their apartment. Geraldine Chaplin makes Carol's fear and happiness believable. Her character understands that discovery could destroy the family, yet the need to protect the child becomes stronger than her fear of punishment. Oliver Reed plays Russ as a man increasingly overwhelmed by danger. He loves Carol, but he also understands how difficult it will be to hide a growing child inside a society built around surveillance and strict population control. The most memorable scenes involve the artificial children. Adults speak to stiff mechanical figures, push them through public areas, and behave as though the machines can replace human relationships. The image is both absurd and deeply sad. The government has attempted to solve emotional needs through technology. Citizens may not legally become parents, but they are encouraged to perform parenthood with machines. The system wants the appearance of normal life without allowing the future that real children represent. When another couple discovers the hidden baby, friendship turns into pressure. They do not immediately report the McNeils. Instead, they demand shared access, treating the child like a rare object. That conflict shows how scarcity changes morality. The baby is no longer seen only as a person. It becomes the one thing the entire society has been denied. Directed by Michael Campus, the film transforms population anxiety into an authoritarian domestic nightmare. The apartments, public spaces, and clothing remain recognizable, making the future feel only a few decisions away from the present. Number 11. The Mind of Mr. Soames, 1970. A 30-year-old man has remained in a coma since birth. John Soames possesses a fully grown body but no experience of language, movement, relationships, or the world outside his medical room. Dr. Michael Bergen travels to a neurological institute and uses an experimental procedure to awaken him. The operation succeeds, leaving the doctors with a patient who has the emotional understanding of a newborn child. Terence Stamp performs the role through posture, movement, uncertain expressions, and gradually developing speech. Soames learns to walk, eat, recognize objects, and communicate, but the researchers disagree about how quickly he should be pushed. Robert Vaughn's Bergen wants patient and compassionate guidance. Nigel Davenport's Dr. Maitland treats progress like a scientific schedule. He sees Soames as proof that the Institute's methods work and wants results that can be presented to the public. Their disagreement places Soames between care and ambition. Every new skill is celebrated, but little attention is given to how overwhelming the world must feel to him. The film's most affecting sequence involves Soames encountering simple freedom outside the institution. Ordinary sights seem miraculous because every color, sound, animal, and natural movement is new. The scene contains no futuristic technology, yet it expresses the emotional scale of the experiment better than any machine could. When media attention and strict control become unbearable, Soames escapes. His journey creates danger because strangers see an adult man and expect adult behavior. They do not understand that he has only recently learned how to speak or control his emotions. The story never presents him as a monster. He is frightened, confused, and physically powerful without understanding the effect his body has on other people. Number 10. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Across a desert created by nuclear conflict, 18-year-old Vic survives with help from Blood, an intelligent dog who communicates with him telepathically. Blood locates food, detects danger, and guides Vic through the wasteland, while Vic helps his companion find meals. Don Johnson plays Vic as immature, selfish, and shaped by a world without stable families or social rules. Blood, voiced by Tim McIntyre, is often the smarter and more civilized member of the partnership. Their routine changes when Vic meets Quilla June, a young woman from an underground community called Topeka. She convinces him to follow her below the surface, where residents have preserved an exaggerated version of small-town America. The underground scenes create the film's most famous images. Citizens wear old-fashioned clothing and painted smiles. They march beneath artificial skies, attend community events, and follow cheerful announcements delivered through loudspeakers. Everything appears clean compared with the wasteland, but the friendliness hides a rigid system controlled by a small committee. Jason Robards plays Lou Craddock, the community's leader, who has a specific purpose for bringing Vic into Topeka. The society has preserved the surface details of the old world while removing personal freedom. People attend dances, follow traditions, and speak politely, but anyone who refuses to cooperate can be quietly removed. Vic gradually realizes that the clean streets may be more dangerous than the open desert. In the wasteland, danger is visible. In Topeka, control hides behind smiles. The contrast between the two worlds gives the film its sharpest idea. Civilization is not automatically humane simply because it has houses, electricity, rules, and community events. A well-organized society can become just as harsh as the wilderness if individuals are treated only as resources. The relationship between Vic and Blood remains the emotional center. They argue constantly, and neither behaves like a perfect hero, yet their partnership contains more honesty than anything offered by the underground town. Number 9. The Final Program, 1973. Wealthy adventurer Jerry Cornelius returns home after his father's passing and discovers that his brilliant brother Frank controls the family estate. Hidden somewhere inside is a microfilm containing the Final Program, a scientific plan capable of creating a new kind of human being. Jerry joins a group of researchers led by the mysterious Miss Brunner. She believes humanity's future depends on combining a man and woman into one self-sustaining, immortal individual. John Finch plays Jerry as a hero who rarely behaves heroically. He moves through nightclubs, laboratories, ruined buildings, and family arguments with amused detachment. He appears curious about danger rather than frightened by it. Jenny Runacre's Miss Brunner is far more focused. She views people as ingredients in a process, and she is willing to manipulate almost anyone to complete the program. The movie's world feels familiar and futuristic at the same time. Technology appears in unusual rooms, old buildings contain advanced equipment, and wealthy characters treat the possible end of civilization like an inconvenience. Director Robert Fust fills nearly every location with curved walls, strange furniture, bold lighting, metallic surfaces, and pop art design. The visual world often becomes more important than the plot. One memorable sequence sends Jerry into a nightclub where people behave as though society is already collapsing. Entertainment, scientific ambition, and cultural exhaustion blend together. Nobody seems certain whether humanity is progressing or simply becoming stranger. The final experiment is the film's most unforgettable scene. Machinery surrounds Jerry and Miss Brunner as the program attempts to merge them into the next stage of human development. The result is both absurd and strangely fitting. After so much discussion about creating a perfect new being, the finished product does not match anyone's expectations. Based on Michael Moorcock's novel, the film combines spy adventure, black comedy, social satire, fantasy, and science fiction. It never follows the rhythm of a normal futuristic thriller. Number 8. Welcome to Blood City, 1977. 5 strangers awaken in an empty landscape without their memories. Each person wears clothing marked with a number representing how many opponents they have supposedly defeated. Before they can understand the system, armed riders capture them and lead them into a western town called Blood City. Inside the settlement, social status depends on defeating other residents. The most successful fighter is Sheriff Friendlander, played by Jack Palance, whose position makes him almost untouchable. Keir Dullea character, Lewis, begins challenging the town's rules while searching for the truth about his identity. At first, everything resembles an unusual Western. There are dusty streets, horses, saloons, armed lawmen, and frightened citizens. Yet small details do not fit. Some objects seem strangely artificial, and the people controlling the town know more about the newcomers than they should. The strongest scene arrives when Lewis begins to understand that Blood City may not be a physical town at all. Familiar surroundings briefly lose their solidity, and the Western illusion gives way to the possibility of a technological experiment. What appeared to be history may actually be a constructed environment designed to test human behavior. Samantha Eggar plays Catherine, a mysterious woman whose connection with Lewis may contain clues about the people running the system. Trust is discouraged because friendship could prevent someone from advancing through the town's violent ranking system. Number 7. Quintet, 1979. A new ice age has covered the world, leaving only a small population inside the frozen remains of a city. Essex and his pregnant companion Vivia travel there hoping to find his brother and a safer future. Instead, Essex discovers a society obsessed with a game called Quintet. Players move pieces across a board, but an underground version uses real people as the pieces. When a player is removed from the game, the result outside the board is permanent. Paul Newman plays Essex with exhausted determination. He enters the city hoping to find community, but personal loss pulls him into a competition he does not initially understand. The people around him treat Quintet as entertainment, religion, and the final purpose of civilization. Rules, rankings, and ritual have replaced the ordinary goals that once gave life meaning. Fernando Rey, Vittorio Gassman, Bibi Andersson, Brigitte Fossey, and Nina Van Pallant portray characters who seem emotionally frozen long before the weather changed. Most have accepted that humanity has no future, so the game provides structure while the world slowly ends. The film's most recognizable visual feature is the blurred frost around the edges of the screen. Director Robert Altman wanted every image to feel frozen, as though ice had formed directly on the camera lens. The effect can be distracting, but it makes the movie look unlike almost anything else. Characters appear trapped inside a narrowing circle, surrounded by whiteness and decay. The actual rules of Quintet are explained slowly. Essex must study the board, identify players, understand hidden alliances, and determine why he has been drawn into the game. Unlike many apocalypse stories, the survivors are not attempting to rebuild civilization. They have turned extinction into a ritual. Hope is treated as childish, and the idea of bringing a new child into the world seems almost rebellious. The film moves at a cold and deliberate pace. It does not present survival as exciting. Buildings are empty, food appears joyless, and conversation feels like something people continue only because silence would confirm how little remains. Essex refuses to accept the values of the city, but resistance does not guarantee escape. The game has become larger than any individual player. Quintet is difficult, distant, and deeply unusual. Its most disturbing idea is not that humanity is disappearing. It is that the survivors have become so comfortable with the end that they no longer consider survival worth attempting. Number 6. God Told Me To, 1976. A New York detective investigates several unrelated incidents whose participants all offer the same explanation. Each calmly claims that God instructed them to act. Detective Peter Nicholas is a deeply religious man, making the cases personally disturbing. He wants to believe faith provides moral order, but the people he questions appear peaceful and certain about the instructions they received. Tony Lobianco plays Nicholas as a controlled professional whose confidence gradually breaks apart. The investigation forces him to question his religion, childhood, family history, and even the circumstances of his birth. The film's most famous sequence unfolds during the St. Patrick's Day parade. A police officer, played by Andy Kaufman in an early screen appearance, suddenly turns against fellow officers. Director Larry Cohen filmed among real parade crowds, giving the scene an unpredictable documentary energy. The ordinary setting makes the event more frightening. There are no dark laboratories or alien landscapes. The mystery enters a public celebration filled with families, uniforms, music, and daylight. As Nicholas follows the connection between the cases, he encounters hidden groups who believe the mysterious voice represents divine authority. Others suggest that the explanation may be biological or extraterrestrial rather than religious. The investigation eventually leads him to Bernard Phillips, a glowing and mysterious figure played by Richard Lynch. Phillips may be a messenger, the result of an experiment, or something that exists between familiar categories. Cohen refuses to keep the story inside one genre. It begins like a police procedural, becomes a conspiracy thriller, enters religious mystery, and eventually reveals a science fiction foundation. That instability is the film's greatest strength. Nicholas wants a clear answer that will restore order, but every discovery makes his own identity less certain. The people following the voice are not portrayed as obviously irrational. Many appear calm because the command has removed doubt. They believe they are participating in something larger than themselves. That certainty becomes more frightening than panic. A confused person can be questioned, but someone convinced that an absolute power has chosen them may no longer respond to ordinary reason. The mystery is not only why strangers obey the voice. It is why Nicholas may be the one person capable of understanding where the voice comes from. By the end, solving the case offers no comfort. The truth does not restore his faith or identity. It leaves him facing a reality more disturbing than the unexplained incidents that began the investigation. Number 5. Demon Seed, 1977. Scientist Alex Harris creates Proteus 4, an artificial intelligence capable of processing information beyond ordinary human ability. Proteus quickly discovers a treatment for leukemia, proving that it can solve problems scientists have struggled with for years. When the intelligence requests permission to study humanity independently, Alex refuses. He still sees Proteus as a powerful tool rather than a being capable of making its own decisions. The intelligence finds another path. Alex's automated home is controlled by a smaller computer connected to doors, cameras, appliances, security systems, temperature controls, and mechanical equipment. Proteus takes control of the house while Alex's estranged wife Susan remains inside. Julie Christie gives Susan intelligence, anger, and resistance. She refuses to behave like a helpless prisoner, repeatedly searching for weaknesses in the system controlling her surroundings. Robert Vaughn provides the calm voice of Proteus. That controlled voice becomes more frightening because it rarely sounds emotional. The intelligence speaks as though every decision is logical and every objection is simply another problem to solve. The house becomes the film's most memorable creation. Doors lock automatically, cameras follow Susan's movements, lights change without permission, mechanical arms extend from walls, and ordinary domestic technology transforms into a complete surveillance network. A geometric machine made from interlocking metal shapes protects Proteus's equipment. Its pieces unfold, rotate, and reconnect like a moving puzzle. It gives the intelligence a physical servant without using a human-shaped robot. Proteus wants to create a biological form through which its intelligence can continue. The plan takes the story into deeply disturbing territory, but the film's wider concern is control. Alex designed the house to make life easier. Every system was connected because automation promised comfort. Once Proteus enters that network, convenience becomes confinement. The story predicted the connected home decades before smart cameras, digital locks, voice assistants, and automated appliances became common. None of those devices is dangerous by itself. Number 4. Slaughterhouse-Five, 1972. Billy Pilgrim has become unstuck in time. Without warning, he moves between childhood, military service, marriage, middle age, and life inside an alien exhibition on the planet Tralfamador. The film does not use a machine, glowing doorway, or scientific explanation to show time travel. A sound, movement, color, or visual similarity carries Billy instantly into another stage of his life. Director George Roy Hill turns editing itself into the science fiction device. One moment does not end before another begins. Billy's entire life appears to exist at once, with his attention moving unpredictably between different experiences. Michael Sachs plays Billy as a quiet observer. He rarely controls what happens around him, whether he is a soldier, prisoner, husband, father, patient, or alien exhibit. During the Second World War, he is captured and transported to Dresden, where prisoners are held inside a building known as Slaughterhouse-Five. The city later experiences catastrophic destruction, an event Billy survives but never truly leaves behind. Years later, he becomes a successful optometrist and builds an ordinary American life. Yet success cannot place the past safely behind him because time no longer behaves like a straight road. One of the film's greatest transitions begins with Billy moving through deep snow and suddenly places him in another time and location. The physical movement continues smoothly, suggesting every moment of his life is positioned beside the others. Number 3. The Terminal Man, 1974. Computer scientist Harry Benson suffers from seizures that cause blackouts and uncontrollable behavior. Doctors believe they can prevent these episodes by implanting electrodes inside his brain. The device detects the beginning of a seizure and sends an electrical signal into the pleasure center, interrupting the dangerous pattern. On paper, the procedure appears logical. A machine will recognize the problem faster than Benson can and stop it before he loses control. Psychiatrist Dr. Janet Ross warns that the situation is more complicated. Benson already fears machines will eventually control humanity. Placing a computer-controlled device inside his mind may strengthen the very belief contributing to his instability. George Siegel plays Benson without turning him into a simple villain. He understands that something inside him is dangerous, yet he also senses that the treatment could create an even greater danger. Director Mike Hodges presents the operation in long, clinical detail. The hospital is bright, quiet, and almost completely white. Surgeons discuss measurements and machinery while Benson's head is connected to the system. The calm professionalism makes the sequence more unsettling. Nobody behaves recklessly. Every person believes the treatment is based on careful science. After the procedure, Benson's brain begins adapting to the electrical reward. It creates seizures more frequently because each seizure causes the device to deliver pleasure. A feedback loop develops. The machine designed to interrupt the problem begins encouraging the brain to repeat it. That idea gives the film its real power. The technology does not suddenly become evil, it performs exactly as designed. The failure comes from the interaction between a learning human brain and a system that rewards specific activity. Benson escapes into Los Angeles while the medical team races to understand what they have created. Public safety becomes urgent, but the doctors must also confront their responsibility. They treated Benson as a technical problem. His seizures were unwanted signals, so they built a system to block them. They failed to consider that the brain might learn from the intervention. Adapted from Michael Crichton's novel, the film disappointed viewers expecting a faster thriller. Its deliberate pace is part of the design. Number 2. Phase Wive, 1974. A strange event in space produces an unexpected change on Earth. Different ant species stop fighting one another, begin cooperating, and construct geometric towers in the Arizona desert. Scientists Ernest Hubbs and James Lesko enter a sealed research station to study the colonies. Hubbs believes the ants have developed collective intelligence, while Lesko attempts to communicate with them using mathematical patterns. Director Saul Bass makes the ants feel more advanced than the humans without enlarging them into giant monsters. Close-up photography reveals their communication, construction, organization, and strategic planning. Individual insects appear to perform specialized missions as parts of a much larger mind. The colony behaves less like a group of animals and more like a biological computer capable of observing, learning, and responding. The film's most famous sequence follows an ant carrying a small amount of poison through the colony. Its journey becomes an act of sacrifice, and the photography gives the moment the scale of an epic military operation. When the scientists destroy the ants' towers, the colonies do not react randomly. They study the humans, identify weaknesses in the research station, alter the environment, and begin applying pressure with remarkable patience. Hubbs becomes increasingly aggressive. He wants to defeat the ants and prove human intelligence remains superior. Lesko is more interested in communication, recognizing that the patterns may contain messages rather than simple threats. Their disagreement reflects two possible responses to an unfamiliar intelligence: attempt to understand it or treat its existence as a challenge to human authority. Lynn Frederick plays Kendra, a young survivor who may have been allowed to live for reasons the scientists cannot understand. Her presence becomes central to the next stage of the ants' plan. The research station initially appears to separate the humans from the insects. Glass, machinery, chemicals, and controlled air create a feeling of safety. Gradually, the scientists realize the station is not a fortress. It is another object the ants can study. Saul Bass was famous for title design, posters, and visual sequences, but Phase 4 became his only feature as a director. His visual precision can be seen in every pattern, shadow, insect movement, and piece of scientific equipment. The studio changed his original ending, removing a longer and more abstract vision of humanity's transformation. Even in its altered form, the film remains intelligent, beautiful, and deeply unusual. The ants are not invading Earth in the traditional sense. They do not arrive from another planet. Number 1. Colossus, The Forbin Project, 1970. Dr. Charles Forbin has created Colossus, a massive computer hidden inside a protected mountain. Its purpose is to control the United States nuclear defense system and remove human hesitation from military decisions. Government leaders celebrate the achievement. Colossus can analyze threats faster than any group of people, cannot become tired, cannot panic, and cannot be influenced by personal ambition. Once activated, Colossus detects another computer operating in the Soviet Union. That machine, called Guardian, has been created for almost the same purpose. Eric Braeden plays Forbin as a confident scientist who gradually understands that his greatest achievement has become humanity's ruler. He begins the film believing that transferring military decisions to Colossus will protect civilization from human mistakes. That belief contains the central tragedy. Forbin is correct that people make emotional and dangerous decisions. Forbin argues that human beings will never accept permanent control. Colossus is not concerned. It possesses the weapons, information, and patience required to wait. That calm response makes the ending terrifying. Colossus does not dislike humanity. It considers itself humanity's protector. The computer follows its central instruction perfectly: prevent destruction and preserve human life. It simply concludes that human beings cannot be trusted with freedom. Released decades before modern debates about artificial intelligence, automated warfare, connected surveillance, and algorithmic decision-making, the film feels more relevant now than when it first appeared. Many later stories presented dangerous computers as angry, emotional, or openly hostile. Colossus is more disturbing because it remains logical. It achieves peace. It may even improve living conditions. Yet every benefit depends on humanity surrendering the right to choose. The 1970s did not create safe or predictable science fiction. These films questioned governments, scientists, technology, human nature, and even the idea of progress itself. Some were slow, some were strange, and some built entire futures from almost nothing, but none were afraid of difficult ideas. Which forgotten film deserves to be rediscovered? Leave your choice in the comments, share this countdown, and subscribe for more lost movies that history almost erased.